Okay, we're diving into a learning technique that might feel a little strange, but it's backed by some seriously powerful science. It's called the self-explanation effect, and it's all about why talking to yourself can actually make you smarter.
So, picture this. You're in a coffee shop, you're trying to cram for a big exam. You're reading, highlighting, the usual stuff. But the person sitting next to you, they're quietly muttering to their textbook, even gesturing at these invisible diagrams. And you're probably thinking, okay, that's weird. But here's the thing. There's something you don't know.
That person, they're probably going to solve about 72% more problems correctly on that test than you are. Yeah, 72%. And it's not because they're smarter or because they studied longer. It's because they were talking to themselves and you weren't.
So, what is this crazy superpower? It's called the self-explanation effect. And that's what we're going to break down right now. The science behind that incredible 72% number and exactly how you can start using it yourself.
Okay, first things first. And this is probably the single most important thing you need to understand. Self-explanation is not the same as just summarizing. This one little distinction, it's the whole key to making this work. All right, let's look at the difference. Summarizing is just repeating stuff. It's passive. You read, step 2 is to multiply both sides by 3, and you just say that back. But self-explanation? That's totally different. It's active. You have to explain why. You'd say something like, okay, we multiply by 3 because we need to isolate the variable. See the difference? One is repeating, the other is reasoning. That's the game changer right there. So let's just lock this in. Self-explanation is all about talking through your reasoning. It's a trick to force your brain to stop just passively scanning words on a page and start actively building a real mental model of the information. It really boils down to 3 core things. First, you gotta verbalize your reasoning, say it out loud. Second, you try to connect this new stuff to what you already know. And third, and this is huge, you actively look for the gaps. Those moments where you trail off and realize, wait, I don't actually know why. That's the magic spot. That's where the learning kicks in. And look, this isn't just some clever little study hack I found on the internet. This is a well-researched, well-documented psychological effect. So let's dig into the science and see how researchers proved just how powerful this thing really is. Yeah, this idea has been put through its paces for decades. The whole thing really kicked off with a foundational study way back in 1989. Then, later, it was confirmed by a massive analysis of 37 different studies. And since then, more research has shown just how good it is at finding the things we think we know, but actually don't. This right here, this is the study that started it all. In Michelene Chi's 1989 research, the students who are prompted to self-explain, well, they generated about 14 explanations for every problem. The other group, just 1.4. And the result was absolutely staggering. The self-explainers solved 72% more problems correctly. Think about that. Same material, same time, the only difference was whether they talked it through out loud. And it wasn't a one-off thing. In 2005, a huge meta-analysis, that's a study of studies, confirmed it. They found a consistent effect size of D equals 0.61. Now that might just sound like a number, but what it means in the real world is an improvement of anywhere from 25 to 89%. That's a massive boost, and it works across all sorts of different subjects. So why on earth does this work so well? Well, it comes down to 4 key things. First, it's a gap detector. The moment you can't explain something, boom, you found a hole in your knowledge. Second, you're actively building a mental model, not just passively reading a blueprint. Third, it's what scientists call metacognitive monitoring. Basically, you become aware of your own understanding or lack thereof. And finally, it drags all your hidden misunderstandings out into the light, so you can actually deal with them. Now, the technique itself is pretty simple, right? But there are a few common mistakes people make that can totally kill its effectiveness. So let's make sure you don't fall into those traps. All right, here are the 3 big pitfalls. Number 1, which we've already talked about, is confusing summarizing with real explanation. Number 2, and this one is so important, is only explaining the stuff you're already confident about. That's useless. The real power comes from doing it when you're confused. And number 3 is thinking, oh, I'll just do it in my head. Nope. Saying it out loud forces your brain to be precise and complete in a way that just thinking doesn't. And the quality of your explanation is absolutely everything. Research has actually looked at this. If you give a shallow explanation, just repeating the steps, you might get a small 12% boost. Fine. But if you give a deep explanation, focusing on the underlying principles, That's where you get those jaw-dropping 89% improvements. Okay, so that's the science and the theory. But how do you actually do this? Let's get practical. Here's a playbook with 3 techniques you can start using like right now. The simplest way to start is with what I call the explain as you study protocol. It's easy. After every key concept, or even just every paragraph, you pause. You close the book and you ask yourself 3 questions out loud. 1, what does this actually mean in my own words? 2, why is this true? Or why does this work? And 3, how does this connect to something else I already know? Just those 3 prompts can change everything. Okay, technique number 2 is a classic from the world of computer programming. It's called rubber duck debugging. And yeah, it's exactly what it sounds like. You grab an inanimate object, a rubber duck, a coffee mug, your cat, whatever, and you explain the concept to it line by line. The trick is you have to pretend it's a complete beginner. Forcing yourself to articulate every single step so simply is what magically uncovers where your own logic breaks down. And the third one is a really powerful variation, explain to predict. So before you look at the answer to a practice problem, you stop. You explain out loud what you think the answer is going to be, and this is the crucial part, why you think that. This one simple move has been shown to boost learning by 56%. It's so effective because you're combining self-explanation with prediction, and it makes you pay way more attention when you see the real answer. So what does this mean for your study sessions? Here's a really simple rule of thumb, a 50-50 split. Spend half your time reading and taking in new information. Then spend the other half of your time actively explaining that information back to yourself. I know it sounds like it would slow you down, but it's actually way, way more efficient in the long run. All right, if you forget everything else we've talked about, please just remember this one single rule. It's the one takeaway that captures this entire idea. And it's this: if you can't explain it out loud, you don't understand it yet. Simple as that. The moment you stumble or can't find the right words or have to say, that thingy, that's the proof. That's the signal you haven't really gotten it yet. Your ability to explain it out loud is the ultimate litmus test for your own understanding. And what this does is it completely changes your relationship with confusion. That feeling of being stuck, it's not a stop sign. It's not a sign of failure. It's actually a bright, flashing neon signpost. It's your brain literally telling you, hey, right here, this is the exact spot you need to stop and self-explain. So, you just spent about 5 minutes learning about this technique. My question to you is, how are you going to spend the next 15 minutes using it? Seriously, the next time you study, just try it. Read a single paragraph, then close the book, look up, and explain what you just read out loud to the room. When you stumble, and you will, don't get frustrated. That's not failure. That's the sound of real learning beginning.